As soon as narcissism came up, it kind of tends to bother me that society in general really wants to give up on them and push them away and defend yourself from them. Where it's talked about, it's obviously coping strategies of just pushing them away, and it never really feels right because of the stories that you were saying. The description seems good, and they're genuine people trying to do what they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a difficult path though, right, to fix. I mean, do you see many success stories, and would you have an approach on how to how to approach people without obviously being walked on?
Yes. So when you're interacting with somebody that needs to be at the center of every relationship dynamic and has very clear limitations in their capacity to authentically empathize and give any more than a certain amount of attention away from themselves. And depending on, just how crippled they are by their condition, determines the extent to which there is some degree of authenticity, because there are some people that are just so completely, shrouded in the insecurity and defense that absolutely every action is a strategic play for their own validation and reinforcement. So even when they're being nice, it's a demonstration. When there's an act of love, it's them demonstrating something. It's strategic. I'm doing this because I'm going to get something out of it. It's part of the marketing, of the brand, because it's all about branding and marketing. And yes, it's very difficult to have an authentic relationship with somebody that's afflicted in this way. And if there's somebody that, either family members or, close friends, that you're just realizing that this is what's going on, we don't want to ever dehumanize them because of the realization. We can become so offended, like, oh, my God, how dare they? They're just so about them, and, they don't care about me. We can become offended and we can write them off. And, ultimately, what's the end goal? That we can not abandon the post of our truest nature, which is love. And to have love for everyone and everything, irrespective of what their condition is. Because love is an internally referenced phenomenon that isn't dependent on, relative things. It's dependent on the extent to which we can see the truth. And, these kinds of conditioned personalities appear in our life as a blessing to help us to cultivate and stabilize a deeper capacity for compassion and understanding. And also a refinement and an artfulness in the way in which we interact, to be more present, more conscious, because you've got to be. Can't fall asleep at the wheel. Say the wrong thing, look out. Don't poke the bear, as they say. And so being in relationship with this requires that you are really clear about what you are and what you are not willing to put up with. Because when somebody is in this state and they lash out, they can be very, very ferocious. And it can be very hurtful. However, if you're resolved in your understanding of where they're at and why they're that way, then compassion always overrides the defensive, reaction that we have to the way that they are. And this is something that's obviously, it's cultivated over time through the practice and the showing up deliberately, willingly, opening your heart, continuing to open your heart, but also being very clear about where your boundaries are and learning how to communicate them, and being willing to have a bit of an explosion when you put in the boundaries, because people like this do not like to have boundaries put up. How dare you? Don't you know who I think I am? Right? And eventually, they will come to accept and respect. This can generally happen. If you're forced to interact, they will yield most of the time if you have strong, consistent boundaries. So it's about management of this personality disorder. Sounds cruel, but it's kind of what it is. And in the extreme cases, at best, what we hope for is an amicable, exchange and an appreciation for whatever can be appreciated. But it's not going to be one of those deep, fulfilling relationships because they're not available to themselves. They have to be available to themselves to be available to others. And they haven't yet found the courage to confront the horrible idea that who they are is worthless. And no matter how much you try to tell them they're great in any real way, or you encourage them to look at it, I wouldn't recommend that, by the way. Don't encourage them to look at it until they have indicated that they're good and ready, because they will ferociously turn on you and make life hell. You can manage that, if you need to be. And it's just being really clear about the distance. And when they've overstepped the line, you be very clear. You've overstepped the line. You withdraw for a moment. You let them know. They can reset. You probably won't ever get an apology. The next time you interact with them, it'll just be like nothing ever happened. Because they don't want to they don't want to go any deeper. So again, I'm making reference to an extreme case. And then it goes into ever less extreme, subtler expressions of this thing, where those tendencies only appear in certain circumstances. Some people just blanket that all the time. And then at other times, we notice that we might just be like that in moments because certain things are being triggered. And at other times, we're totally fine to not be in the limelight. You can, give feedback and it's received beautifully. You can have a deep, meaningful, vulnerable exchange. And then sometimes not. And we're complex like that. It's on a spectrum. But I've just given you the sort of the extreme end of it. And it's always our desire to just never lose sight of our humanity. And the highest path here is always just seeing the human story and understanding it. It doesn't necessarily make it that much easier in instances, but well, actually it does. It does make it easier because you can have love in your heart. There are two things that I'd like to share with you right now. The first is that if you would like to join us for these wisdom sessions, which all the videos are recorded at on a weekly basis, all you need to do is register for our newsletter below. And the second thing I want to share with you is that we offer a free 7-day transformation program that you can access at ritam.studio, which is a part of a much bigger set of teachings, discourses, courses, and programs and retreats that are all available to our members. So if you're interested in taking this teaching to another level, then we welcome you over to Ritam Studio. Please join us.